I don't remember how to do. I talk into here and I look. This how we do this?
I think so. I think you're on the right track here.
I feel this is weird. This is the Eagle Eye Podcast. It's been a while, as you guys have let us know quite frequently on Twitter. We appreciate that. A bunch of people asking when we were getting back to doing the podcast, and we're back. We took some time in the summer. It's really the only dead time of the NFL schedule. So we took some time, we're refreshed, and now we're ready to go for training camp.
Yeah, and it's one thing to. I mean, we came up with some pretty good time fillers over the last few months, but at some point you just have to shut down and say, you know what, there's just nothing to talk about. So we
Yeah,
did that.
and
We did that for a couple of weeks.
I almost feel bad for people. They've been really excited for us to get back. And then they're going to listen to this podcast and be like, maybe we shouldn't have built it up. It wasn't that good. We didn't like it that much.
Well, we're a week out, a little more than a week out from training camp. So we're kind of, but we can think of this as like, just a dry run.
Yeah. I like that. This is a dry run for when we actually have real stuff. But we have a good show today because we want to we're starting to get ready for training camp. We're going to talk about Deshaun Watson a little bit. It seems like that's one topic we kind of can't escape, and we won't escape most likely. I've been doing a top 20 countdown of the most important Eagles this year. So we'll go through numbers 20 through 11, and then we'll finish up the list next week. And the Eagles announced since the last podcast we've done that they're having joint practices this year, 2 different rounds. So we want to talk about that too. But first, Rue, how you been? It's weird. I don't think we've gone this long without doing a pod in ever.
Yeah, ever. So, yeah, all is good. Got away a little bit, going away a little bit more, but it's been such a weird couple of years. Yeah, really a year and a half now since the pandemic started, and I think last year nobody really knew. Like, we were working from home all the time, so we were just like, it didn't make sense to take time off. Like, it just, you were home anyway. I think we kind of all just wanted to work through to help pass the time and get through the days when there was total shutdown. So we didn't take any time off last year, but you need it. You need a little bit of time away. It was funny because, like, I'm sure you get, people stopping you all the time and they want to talk about the Eagles, and, with masks, like I really didn't get stopped very much, plus you're not really out that much and there's not people around. But now, you get stopped and like, I'm on vacation, I don't want to talk about it. But, you always do because, people are dying to hear what you think. But yeah, I mean, it's kind of weird. Like, you have to really work to take a vacation when you're in that work mode. You have to kind of really work to get away from it, not check Slack, not think about the Eagles for a little while. But it was definitely good to get away. And I know you got away, and now we're back.
Yeah,
And we're
it felt good to travel. For me, like, I get itchy when I can't travel a little bit, or at least do something. So I was
yeah.
happy to finally get out of the area, and I explored Maine for a little bit. It was fun. So,
Well, I got to ask you, because my dad's from Maine. I go to Maine a lot. Haven't been the last couple of years, but I basically grew up going to Maine every summer, and have continued to do that. What was your favorite thing that you saw up there?
yeah, it was really fun. So I went with a couple friends. We went up to like the Mount Katahdin, Northwoods almost area for a few days, and then we went to Acadia for a few days. Both really beautiful. Acadia is a national park, so it's really crowded in the summer, and that took some getting used to after being kind of up on our own. But both beautiful areas, and it was my first time in the state. It's one of the few states I just haven't been to, and it's close enough that I feel like I should have gone. But this was the perfect time to go because international travel is kind of hard right now. So I was like, let's find a way to do something and see something cool within driving distance, and it was great. I had a blast, absolute blast.
Did you walk around the carriage trails up on Cadillac on the mountain?
A little bit. So the day we went to Cadillac, it wasn't even foggy. It was a cloud. It was like the top of the mountain was in a cloud. So the views weren't that great, but we did a bunch of hiking in Acadia, and then in the Northwoods area, we were on the river every day. It was really hot, so We were lucky enough, a great guy we became friends with took us on the river and did some whitewater stuff. And both really cool. I was happy to be there, but I'm also happy to be back. I don't ever want to come back from vacation, but when I come back and it's like, all right, training camp is almost, I really do get excited for training camp.
Oh, really? I hadn't noticed.
I know. That's probably the dorkiest thing about me is how excited I get for training camp.
So you have all your notebooks ready and like all your extra pens and
not yet. I'll do that later this week. I'll get everything ready to go.
All right.
But we did want to mention joint practices. Really cool. Eagles are having 2 rounds of joint practices, August 16th to 17th. They'll host the Patriots. That's obviously right before they play the Patriots. And then again, they'll be in North Jersey, August 24th to 25th, a couple days before the Jets in the final preseason game. Nick Sirianni basically told us he wanted to do this, and it's no surprise. A guy who puts competition ahead of everything else, he's going to want joint practices. I really always enjoy them, not just the cover, but I think they're really good for teams too.
Yeah, I'm a little surprised he's doing 2 of them. The Eagles have never done 2. I know some teams always do 2. The Patriots always do 2. The Ravens always do 2. But the Eagles have never done 2 in 1 year. And for a first-year coach, a lot of times they don't like to do them. They want to, because there's so much install that they want to do. They want to teach their system and get their message across and put their offense in and have the players really focus on that. It's really something that I think joint practices generally you see teams that are kind of have been together a little longer participated. So it's a little unusual for a first year coach to have 2 of them. But obviously there's only 3 preseason games. So I think that might be part of it. And I think that number is going to go down. But I also think that, like you said, he's so big on competition, and there's really something you get from these workouts that you don't get from practicing every day against the same guys. You get a different look, you get different skill set than the guys you're going up against. You get surprised by people that you're not familiar with. So, the players, some players don't like them, but I think the players do get a lot out of it. And, it takes them out of the routine. When you practice against the same guy every day for 4 weeks, you know everything about him, everything he can do. And you stop. I think the amount that you improve kind of levels off just because you've seen everything they do. You know what they're going to do. You know their moves and their tendencies. So this takes them out of that, and it's going to be interesting. We'll see some familiar faces certainly.
Yeah, I mean, right away with the Patriots, we'll see Jalen Mills, we'll see Nelson Aguilar. That'll be fun. It's a good point about a first-year head coach because they have a lot of work to do installing their own stuff. And it makes you wonder if they hadn't had any kind of spring, if they'd even be able to do this. I think those spring practices, those spring kind of meetings allowed them to get far enough along that he probably feels comfortable with, hey, let's have a couple weeks of just ourselves in training camp. And that's a nice thing. They're not doing it before the first preseason game. So they're going to get through basically 2 weeks of practice, 1 preseason game, and then they'll start practicing with other teams. I know some coaches actually value these joint practices more than preseason games because you can control it. Like if you want to see how your team responds in a red zone situation, well, guess what? Now we're doing red zones. You don't have to wait for it to happen in a game, which would be more natural, but you can kind of dictate everything you want to see and you can make sure you see it. Whereas in a preseason game, if this situation doesn't arise, you don't ever get to see your players in there. My thought about joint practices with Jalen Hurts as the quarterback, it doesn't really allow him to be him as much as games do. And there's nothing you can do to avoid that. But I think back to a couple years ago when Lamar Jackson was here for these joint practices, he was okay. I thought he was clearly the second best quarterback on the field. I thought Carson was much better that week. And then he goes on and he wins the MVP and he's the most electrifying player like we've ever seen, but you realize that the practice situation just doesn't allow him to do what he does. And I think that's true to a certain extent with Jalen Hurts too.
Yeah, I think that's true, but I also think it'll give him the structure to really focus on the things that he needs to get better at.
It's true.
So I mean, we know he can take off and run whenever he wants to. I mean, like, I don't think he has to, I don't know how much he has to practice that, we've seen it. We know he can do it. I think the less he runs, I think in the long term, the less he does run. And it's true with every quarterback. I think the more effective the offense is and the more effective the player is. So, I think in some ways, maybe it'll really force them to focus on the structured aspect of his game and the offense. So we'll see. I think the interesting thing to me, and remind me, did Chip didn't do joint practices his first year, did he? I don't think he did.
I don't think so.
Because I think the last time the Eagles did joint practices with a first year coach, I believe, because Andy didn't want to do them, and Ray didn't do them till I think his third year. They practiced with the Bills at Lehigh. In '86, Buddy Ryan and the Eagles went out to Detroit, and he hated it, and it was so bad. There were fights all the time, and the Lions and the Eagles had completely different ideas of what they wanted to do. Like the Eagles, Buddy wanted to hit, and I think the Lions coach was Darryl Rogers. They didn't want to hit at all. They just wanted to do, kind of walk through pace and everything. And finally, the last day, Buddy just said, "We're practicing by ourselves today. We're not even going to bother with you. We're just on such different." And that doesn't happen anymore. Now the coaches get together early in the summer and they plan every rep and every drill. And, you have to be on the same page that way for anybody to get anything out of it. And if everyone's fighting all the time, I remember when with Kerry Williams, who was the Patriots D-back or wide receiver? Was it Aaron Dobson?
I don't know.
I believe they got into a fight and they just got taken out of practice because they were under instructions. Nobody's going to fight in these practices. And as soon as it's hard to believe Kerry Williams get into a fight, but I think it was Aaron Dobson, and the two coaches just took them both out of practice and said, "You're done for the day." So I think these practices have really evolved from the days of, fights all the time and just, all that stuff to let's really focus on getting something done here. And otherwise it's a waste of time.
Yeah. The one interesting thing too about this is the Eagles have the Patriots. So obviously have Belichick, who's one of the more experienced coaches in the league. And then they'll have two first-year head coaches with Sirianni and Robert Saleh. That's interesting, because you kind of wonder, even though the practices against the Patriots are at the NovaCare, I wonder if Belichick will be, I wonder how much power he'll have to run the practice the way he wants to run it. I wonder how different it'll look compared to like a normal practice.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I think it was one thing when the Patriots came down with Brady, it's kind of a different vibe now. I mean, I don't even think of them as the Patriots anymore. I mean, the mystique is kind of gone. When Brady left for Tampa, he took the mystique with him, I think. So yeah, it's a good question. It's interesting and it's interesting it'll be interesting to see, how they interact. I mean, Belichick, how many coaches has Belichick seen come and go? So it'll be interesting. If Belichick likes you, man, if you're a coach and he likes you though, he'll go to the end of the world for you. So, but yeah, I wonder how it all evolved with, I mean, does Nick Sirianni have a relationship with Bill Belichick that was it arranged by Howie? I mean, I have no idea.
Yeah, I don't know. And it will be, I mean, Josh McDaniels will be here, which will be fun.
That's right. He'll finally make his way to the NovaCare complex. We thought it might happen a little earlier.
Yeah, and with the Patriots, I'm sure it's like they want to do them no matter what. So if the Eagles want to do them, they're in.
Yeah, and you're looking at you're so limited. It's got to be a team that you're playing. It's got to be a team that's, geographically close. You don't want to. I mean, the Eagles went to Detroit in '86. That was a mistake. But I'm trying to think the ones that we've done over the years mainly have been here.
Yeah, the Dolphins a few years ago.
Dolphins. That's the big Nate Allen return. I did that story that day. The Eagles were in Foxborough the one year, which was really interesting. They have all the fields right outside the stadium, so that was pretty cool. And they were open to the public, so there was thousands of fans there, which was really cool. Because you don't get that here.
Those Jets practices are open to fans.
Yeah,
that'll be fun.
That'll be.
I wonder how many Eagles fans will travel to a practice in Florham Park.
A lot. I mean, I know a lot. Tweeted to me that they're going to be up there. They're only for, I mean, there's the two joint practices at the link, but I mean, this will be more intimate. This will feel more like a training camp. Mm-hmm. Because you never. I mean, the joint or the open practices. I mean, at the link are nice, but it doesn't have that training camp feel because you're in the stadium. You're not up close. But I would even guess there'll be more Eagles fans than Jets fans at those practices. It'll be like the Chargers game in the soccer stadium.
I don't know if it'll be quite like that. That
would
be
selling
fun,
Eagles merch at the merch stand.
That'd be pretty funny. Anything else on joint practices before we move on?
No, I enjoy them. I'm trying to remember if the Eagles ever did joint practices at Lehigh because I don't think they did. They had the Bills up there in '98. And it
would have been tough, right? I mean, just logistically.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it was tough to have one team up there logistically.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't think they ever did. So that's one good thing about going back to the NovaCare, I guess, and having training camp there. It's a lot easier to facilitate something like this. But yeah. I wish fans, especially for the Patriots, I wish fans could be there. Maybe they should practice at the link. They should have those practices at the link and open them up.
Yeah, but the practices at the link are so limited by space. You have 3 fields at the NovaCare.
Yeah, and the turf. Yeah, you really don't. You want to limit your time on that turf. I don't think Belichick would be happy about doing that.
I came down here to be on one field on turf.
Yeah. Yeah, it was funny. I was doing a lot of reading about the '86 practices. I wasn't there. I wasn't covering Eagles yet, but it was funny. The one story, apparently, the schedule that they put the Eagles on. They were practicing at Oakland College in Rochester, Michigan, but then they had meetings at the Silverdome in Pontiac, and they had the team had to bus 10 different times a day. From the hotel to the college to the Silverdome, back to the college and they kept going back and forth. And after one day, that buddy said, "No, that's we're not doing that anymore." And he turned the hotel into their locker room without the hotel like knowing about it. And Buddy was asked in an interview, are you a little concerned about the hotel, not welcoming you when you're turning it into an NFL locker room? He said, and he just said, if they want us to bleep and leave, we'll leave. Things have changed since then, but but I'm looking forward to seeing Nelly.
Okay.
And Vinny Curry. We'll see Vinny Curry up there.
That'd be fun.
Joe Douglas.
Top 20 most important Eagles countdown. I've done this for a couple years. So today we just want to go through numbers 20 through 11. How do you want to do this? You want to just go player by player here?
Yeah, let's just go player by player real quick.
Okay. Number 20, I have Joe Flacco. And I had some people get upset about this, but he's the backup quarterback. And I always think the backup quarterback is one of your most important players, or at least top 20, because look, we don't think this team's going to be a real playoff team, but if they have no chance, if Jalen Hurts gets hurt and Joe Flacco can't be at least serviceable.
Yeah. And I mean, when the reality is, how often has an Eagles quarterback played an entire season in recent years? Even going back to, I mean, you look at their playoff quarterbacks and they're always guys that have, I mean, obviously Nick was a replacement. And I mean, you go back to like Rodney Peete, Jeff Garcia, mean, they're always going into the playoffs with guys that weren't the starter at the beginning of the year. And, Michael Vick. So, I mean, the odds that you're, especially in a 17-game season, the odds that you're going to play an entire season with one quarterback are really, really slim. So it is an important position. How much he has left, I don't know. I have a feeling at some point we're going to find out.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, history tells you that even 2019, quarterback played all 16 games and then made it through a few snaps in the playoffs. So
I still can't believe that happened. You play an entire season, and next thing you know, Josh McCown's out there running around.
Yeah, unbelievable. So we both agree that backup quarterback probably deserves to be on the list.
Yeah.
Number 19, Eric Wilson, the first newcomer on the list. He's coming off a really good season, a breakout season for him in Minnesota, kind of like the Alex Singleton thing here. Eric Wilson gets on the field because of injuries, and he filled up the stat sheet out there in Minnesota.
Yeah, I'm really interested to see him where he fits in. He's only had the one year as a full-time starter. So I'm not saying last year was a fluke, but he's a guy that you want to see what he can do year to year. And, you think of a guy like Jordan Hicks, who had like 6 interceptions one year or 5, and then like has 2 since then. Not that he's not a good player, but the numbers sometimes don't, in 1 year don't always indicate what kind of player someone really is. So how much is he around the ball? How much of a playmaker is he? Curious to see.
Yeah, I mean, the stats last year are really impressive. I have them in front of me. 122 tackles, 3 sacks, 3 picks, 2 fumble recoveries, a forced fumble, 9 QB hits. I mean, that's filling it up. And the one thing that's you like about him is he can cover. He's a cover linebacker. He's their best cover linebacker. So he's going to be on the field. I think he has a chance to play the most of any linebacker, and that might include Singleton. I think that him and Singleton might kind of split some of those nickel reps.
Yeah.
And even like when they're in, I guess, like a dime package, but he can cover, and you need that.
I'm curious to see how those linebacker reps will end up getting split up. Right now it's a big unknown.
Yeah. Number 18, Jalen Reagor. It was tough to know where to put him, but they need something from him. We're eventually on this list. We'll get to Devontae Smith, but Rager's going to play a lot. All right. I mean, he's going to play a lot, and they're going to need something from him.
Yeah. And I was thinking the other day about what would be a good season from him. I think you're a little higher on him than I am. I didn't really like what I saw, but again, it was so much was kind of conspiring against him, the injuries, the quarterback play, the O-line play, the play calling. There was so much working against him that it's hard to really know how much stock to put into what we saw from him last year. Yeah, I mean, I'd like to see him kind of really assert himself as a WR2. And, I don't know what the numbers would be. You'd like to see the guy catch 55 balls for 800 yards. Which is low for a first round pick, but I don't know if he'll ever be a 1,200, 1,300 yard guy. I just don't know if he's good enough to do that. But like you said, you'd like to see production. I think he really needs to be that number 2 guy, unless Fulgham or, if Fulgham can be what he was for 5 weeks over a full season, he would probably end up being the second guy. I mean, that 5 weeks is better than Jalen Reagor's 5 best weeks. So,
oh yeah, easily.
It'll be interesting to see how that. I mean, any 5 weeks is what I'm saying. Like you take Jalen's, So, we'll see how it plays out. But yeah, they need him to be not great, but really, pretty good, better than average.
Yeah, I think the new coaching staff is going to help him. I really do. I like the idea of playing him in the slot a little bit more, and that's something we've already heard that they've been doing with him. And I also like the idea of getting the ball in his hands and then letting him create. not just because I think those can be effective plays, but I think those can help his confidence. You know, if he catches the ball 2 yards downfield and has a nice gainer, I'll take that. I think there was a little bit of a confidence issue. I think he has a little bit of a chip on his shoulder. I think that can be a good thing, but I think with him, it kind of teeters on good and bad. I think that he has to kind of focus his energy to make that chip on his shoulder a good thing. And I don't know if he did that as much as he needed to in his rookie year, but I think the coaching staff can help him. I really do.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. You like the, you like the I don't know, not you like the swagger, you like the attitude, but it's got to be kind of channeled the right way. And
yeah,
I'm
he's
not
pissed
sure
off, and I like that. I like that he's pissed
Yeah.
off. I just think there's a way to do it in a productive way and a way to let it kind of torpedo your season. And he has to learn how to do it right.
I don't have a great feeling about him. We'll see. I would not be surprised if someone else ends up being the number 2 receiver, but we'll see.
I mean, that would be not necessarily a disaster, but that would be really disappointing if that happens.
Yeah, although you can paint it as, someone else was just better. I mean, if somebody else is, there's a limited number of people who it could be. I'm kind of assuming it won't be J-Jaw or Hightower. So, you're talking about Fulgham or Quez, who I think has the potential to be pretty good. We'll see how it all plays out, but it's a big year for him. And like, if Devontae catches 75 balls for 1,211 yards, that doesn't take him off the hook for Reagor. It doesn't, it doesn't.
Yeah.
You can't keep drafting first round wide receivers until you get it right and say, well, we got this guy. So they need both of them to produce.
Yeah. 17, Rodney McLeod. He seems to think he's going to be ready for week 1. The timeline kind of adds up there. And even if he's not ready for week 1, it probably shouldn't be too much longer after that.
Right.
And he's a big part of this team now. Anthony Harris is here. So one of the things I'm really curious about is how those two guys play together.
Yeah, Anthony Harris, a guy whose name is coming up soon on the list, from what I remember. Rodney, safety is, there's certainly question marks throughout the secondary. Rodney's the one guy that's a known quantity. When he's healthy, who knows? And he's an older guy, and he's been, he's had some injuries. So I would never count him out. But until we see him out there healthy, we're all going to be wondering.
Yeah, he's 31 now.
Yeah.
Coming off his second ACL. So you don't know. He's entering a contract year too. And we'll get to Anthony Harris, but Anthony Harris is almost like a younger version of Rodney in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. I think Rodney's been really underrated since he's been here. He's just a really solid guy, solid player. And he's like a throwback to the old days. There's not many of those guys left. So hopefully he can put together another good year.
Yeah. It's almost like he got overshadowed here by Malcolm the same way that Harris got overshadowed by Harrison Smith in Minnesota.
Interesting. Yeah, I definitely think that was the case. Malcolm was better. Malcolm is a better player than Rodney.
Different player, though, too. He had different responsibility, different role.
Sure. But I think Rodney was a perfect, compliment to Malcolm.
Sure. Number 16, Avonte Maddox. Right now he's CB2, but even if someone else ends up as the outside corner, Avonte, I think, is then still going to be the nickel, and he's going to have a big role. I can't shake the thought of 2017. I got asked a question the other day about for a Patrick Robinson candidate. So a player who has a bad training camp and then a good season. And it was such a weird situation. I don't know if we'll ever see something quite like that.
Yeah.
But Avonte is the perfect guy for that, because he's the reason Patrick Robinson looked awful in that training camp was because he was playing outside corner And then once the Eagles traded for Darby, it pushed him inside, and all of a sudden he was much better as the nickel. That's kind of what I could see for Avonte here, is that, he's kind of forced to be outside where he's out of position. And then maybe they add someone, or maybe Zach McPherson finally wins the job. And then Avonte goes inside. All of a sudden he's where he belongs.
Yeah. Wherever he is, he's going to be playing a lot. So wherever he is, he's going to be an important guy in that secondary. I mean, because you look past him, I mean, there's just the cupboard's bare. So, wherever he lines up, he's going to be important.
Yeah. 15, I cheated. I have two players. I have Andre Dillard and Jordan Mailata.
I'm not sure I accept this. I don't.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a cop-out. But my point was that no matter who wins the job, that position is so important. It's obviously the left tackle. We know that it protects the blind side. But the thing about this competition, and we've talked about it before, but it doesn't feel to me like just a competition for the left tackle job in 2021. It feels like they're competing for the job. It feels like whoever wins the job this year is the left tackle for however long that is.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And you certainly don't want to have an open competition every summer. So, and then there's contracts to think about and value. I mean, I wrote in my 10 obs this past weekend that I still think that if Dillard does not win the job, there's a chance they'll trade him, because I just don't know about the value of a backup offensive lineman who plays one position. I still think there's a chance he wins the job. And I'm not saying that there's no chance of that happening. I think it's certainly in the realm of possibility, but I think Jordan Mailata gives you more as a backup. And if they think Driscoll can be a backup left tackle, as well as right tackle and guard, he can kind of play anywhere, and thought he hung in pretty well at right tackle when he had to play last year, then, if you can get something. Now, you never want to trade away a first round pick 3 years later. It's a bad look. But if you're talking about building the best 53-man roster and Jordan Mailata wins that job, I'm just not sure what the value of Andre Dillard is.
I get that. And I guess a big question to that, or a follow-up to that, is Jack Driscoll. Do they feel like he can be an adequate backup swing tackle?
Like I said, that's, to me, that is as big a part of that question as, who wins the job. I like Driscoll. I thought he really battled. Now, he had injury issues of his own, but when he played, I mean, he's tough. He's not lame, but he was a serviceable guy as a rookie fourth round pick who started opening day. I mean, they asked a lot of him. What did he start 6 games off and on throughout the year, maybe, before he got hurt? I thought he was pretty solid. Now, right tackle and left tackle are different animals, but he seems versatile. He seems mentally to be a guy who's like, just put me anywhere. I just want to play, whether it's guard or tackle or wherever. So I wonder if we'll see him. It's going to be hard to get him any reps at left tackle because you're trying to find out who your starter is. But
how about this? How about this idea? A little outside the box idea for Stout. I'll bring
here's one of Dave's outside the box ideas that we love so much.
So what if, say day one of training camp, you have Jordan Mailata at left tackle with the first team. How about second team, you put Driscoll at left tackle, Dillard at right tackle, and you keep doing that. So Dillard and Mailata are cross-training. So one day they're first team left tackle, the next day they're second team right tackle. That way you can also get Driscoll caught up at left tackle in case you need him to be the swing this year.
I like that idea. I think they might just want to get those guys as many reps at left tackle as possible. I think that might be the approach, but it'll be interesting to see where they do work. Really, all three of them. What spots they get reps at.
Because even if say Dillard wins the job, at that point you'd probably want Mailata to be the swing tackle, right? So you would still want him to cross train unless they're really like, hey, and that would be weird to me to have a backup left tackle and a backup right tackle. I don't know if that's the best allocation of roster spots. They could do it. They could say, hey, Jack Driscoll's our backup right tackle, and our backup left tackle is whoever doesn't win this job. But that almost seems like a waste to me. And honestly, at least with Mailata, I think I'd want him out there before Driscoll if he doesn't win the starting left tackle job.
I think Driscoll might be a better right tackle than Mailata.
I don't think so.
I think so. I don't think they're crazy about Jordan at right tackle, but I don't know. I mean, we're getting pretty deep. I mean, we'll see how it all plays out. Who gets reps where? Knowing Stout,
But that's your argument for trading Dillard, is that he's only a backup at one spot. You just think that Mailata wouldn't be their top backup option at right tackle?
Yeah, I mean, he can play. He can play there. I don't think Dillard can play there. I mean, I just don't think. I mean, maybe mentally, he's talked about how much he's grown up and loves the game now. Maybe his attitude toward right tackle is different. Maybe he's willing to give it a fair shot. He should be able to play there, But I mean, he's got to get some reps. I don't know. I'd like
to see them cross train a little bit this summer.
Yeah, it's an interesting thought. And knowing Stout, I mean, I'm sure he's thought of it, and I'm sure, he likes getting guys work everywhere. So
I'm picturing Stout listening to this. Right, let me write that down.
He is.
What did Dave say? Mailata right tackle. Okay. Number 14, Derek Barnett. I didn't mean to do this, but he's number 14. He was a number 14 pick in the draft back in 2017. I didn't mean to do that. That's just the way it fell. I think two things are true about Derek Barnett. He's a pretty good player. He's not as good as he should be.
Yeah, that's fair. Pretty good. The guy's never had 7 sacks in a season. So I don't even know if he's pretty good. I mean, he's been okay. Yeah. It's a big year for him, and he's making $10 million. And last time they did the 5th-year option, didn't go so well. I don't think anybody would be surprised if he has 10, 11 sacks, 12 sacks this year. I think it's in him. I think it's there. Got to stay healthy. We'll see how Tracy Rocker, maybe can add to his repertoire of moves, because I think it's something he needs. He needs more moves to be more productive.
I also think he's a player where the sack numbers aren't necessarily telling the full picture about his disruptiveness.
That's what they always say about guys that don't get sacks.
Well, it's true in a lot of cases.
He's disruptive, but
he has 65 quarterback hits in 48 career games.
Okay.
He's disruptive.
Yeah, I'm just not a huge fan. He's the 14th pick in the draft. I mean, when Mike Mamula got those stats, everyone ripped on the guy because he didn't have sacks, and he had more sacks than Derek Barnett.
I'm not talking about Mike Mamula. That's your go-to is the Mike Mamula thing. I'm not talking about Mike Mamula. I think Barnett's a pretty good player who should be much better. And I'm not arguing that. Like, obviously, as the 14th pick, he should be a better player than he is. But they're going to have a decision to make with him. I mean, they already made one because he's here right now at $10 million this season, which seems like it's an overpay, and like it is. But also, we've seen the pass rusher contracts are insane.
That's true too. They're crazy. I mean, when he hits the open market, I mean, he's going to get a good contract because, he might not have the sacks, but he's got those hurries, Dave. No. I mean, actually, in reality, if he did hit the open market, I think he would have gotten a huge contract just because the potential is there. I mean, we all see the potential. I mean, there's times where, when he does produce and you see him, you're like, why can't he just do that more often? I mean, it's there. So staying healthy is where it starts. He's had a lot of different coaches. I'm sorry.
He struggled to stay healthy. And Jim Schwartz used to tout his toughness, but he was only showing his toughness because he was always battling some kind of injury.
Yeah. It's a big year for him. You have the number 14?
Yeah.
You could even have him. I could see having him even higher, but it's a good spot for him.
13, there was some foreshadowing earlier. Anthony Harris. another newcomer, another guy from Minnesota. I have him higher than Rodney because Rodney's coming off the injury and because I think Jonathan Gannon is going to lean on Harris a little bit this year, former assistant defensive backs coach in Minnesota. I think Harris is going to have a good understanding of a lot of the things Gannon wants to do. Do you think that's fair?
Yeah, I do. I think it's why he's here. A part of why he's here. So yeah, and the fact that every coach brings in. Not that he's a head coach, but every coach wants that guy, that comfort level guy, a guy who speaks his language, who can kind of translate to the other players. I think he's going to have a big role from that standpoint. But he's a solid player too. So especially with Rodney's situation with the injury, that kind of elevates him even higher on the list.
Yeah, we talked about it a little bit before, but Harris and McLeod have kind of been deep safeties.
Yeah.
In their career, whereas in Minnesota, Harrison Smith was in the box a lot more. Here in Philly, Malcolm Jenkins, and then of course Jalen Mills last year in the box more. So I'm curious to see how these two guys play. It probably shows you there'll be a little more cover two. I don't know what it means if there's another safety who comes on the field and plays in the box, if that's Kayvon Wallace or whoever else. I think Epsy is kind of more of a deep safety. Can we still call him Epsy?
You call him whatever you want. Yeah.
He's more of a deep guy to me. But the other thing about Harris is he's on a
one. Rodney can play in the box too.
He can.
Yeah.
I think he's better as the deep safety.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But he could do either.
He could. The Eagles got Harris for basically a $4 million contract this year. If they had tried to sign him last year, it would have been a lot more than that because he was coming off that 6 interception season. What do you do you think he is that player, or do you think he's somewhere in between?
I'm guessing he's somewhere in between. Not a lot of guys are getting 6 interceptions every year.
I can't believe he didn't make the Pro Bowl that year, by the way.
I know, that's crazy. Interceptions are down. And they go down every year. Obviously in Philly, they're way down. The Eagles have, I think, 31 over the last 3
Eagles
years.
Ahead of the trend.
They are. They're trailblazers. So 6 is a lot. I don't think the Eagles have. I guess Rodney's got 6 as an Eagle. He'd be the only one. So yeah, I wouldn't expect that, but. He seems to be a guy that should be around the ball and should be making plays. And if they're in his hands, hopefully he catches them.
That's a big part of it. We've seen some dropped interceptions over the last few years.
All the rules, the pass interference rules, the quarterback protection rules, everything is favoring the offense and the quarterback. And that's why interceptions are down. And I think quarterbacks get rid of the ball faster than they ever did. Completion percentages keep going up. So, this is the reality of the NFL. There just aren't that many opportunities to get interceptions. So when you have them in your hands, you got to catch them. And so the Eagles have not done a good job of that. When they have had the opportunities the last few years, they haven't held on to them. So that might be, it's an interesting story, just kind of looking at the trends of, there's like half as many interceptions as there were just, 20 years ago. The numbers are crazy.
Yeah, I think you hit on a few of them. And honestly, I think a lot of it is the skill of quarterbacks has risen quite a bit too.
I think a lot of it is colleges are playing more pro-style offenses, so quarterbacks are getting to the league more ready to play. Mm-hmm. And maybe part of it is college, NFL coaches go to colleges, but it just seems like, it used to be like the Pac-10 played pro-style offense, but nobody else really did. But now, 1 AA schools are playing pro-style offenses and getting quarterbacks drafted. So,
any in particular?
Because, if you're a top, what's that?
Any in particular you were thinking of?
I wasn't really thinking of North Dakota State or anything, but I think I think it makes sense because if you're a college and you want to attract the best quarterback, he's going to want to be a guy that goes there and gets prepared for the NFL. And if you're running the ball, if you're Army, you're not going to. It's so, as recruiting's gotten more competitive, I think the battle for the top quarterbacks, you got to run pro style. That guy's not going to go there if he doesn't have a chance to develop into an NFL quarterback.
Number 12, Javon Hargrave. I think he's probably the most under the radar $13 million guy. I mean, no one even thinks about him, but I think there's something there with him. He got off to a terrible start last year for a few different reasons. He got hurt, and it does take a while to kind of break out of the mold of being in that, especially from Pittsburgh, being in that two gap, just super passive defense. It took him a while. The injury hurt him, but when he was playing well last year, he played really well.
Yeah, he finished strong. I think we got to see why the Eagles liked him so much. So if he can, now it's a new system, it's a new defense, a new staff. So how much of that momentum can he carry over? I don't know, but if he can play the way he did at the end of last year, maybe the last, 6 games or so, he could be a Pro Bowler. I mean, I think the potential is there.
I do too. And they need him because we talk about how deep they are on the D-line, but at defensive tackle, they have Fletcher, who is Fletcher, and then you have Javon Hargrave. Those two guys you have to rely on because after that, there's some talent, but unknowns because Hassan Ridgeway has played well when he's been healthy. He hasn't been healthy. And then you have 2 rookies in Milton Williams and Marlon Tuipulotu. So I almost nailed it. So they need Hargrave to play really well.
Yeah. I mean, I think we've talked about this, and I've kind of, I'm excited to see the Milton Williams, and I think he's going to be pretty good, but I think he'll end up being the third D tackle. But yeah, I mean, Hargrave and playing on that line with that kind of talent, I think you picked him as one of your first time Pro Bowlers. I think that makes a lot of sense. He could have that kind of year.
Yeah. I think he really could.
It's going to be, I mean, if these guys are all healthy, with BG and Kerrigan and Sweat and Derek Barnett on the edge, and these guys in the middle, it's going to be a really formidable D line. Potentially, I think one of the best in the league. They're going to create some real issues for offenses, and if they play up to their potential, up to their capabilities, that it'll be the heart of this defense, and it's going to make everything in the back 7 easier. That they can have that kind of impact on games.
Yeah, I wonder if we'll see some sort of like NASCAR package under Gannon, like Shorts had, where they get BG inside, where even dating back to Super Bowl year, he had a ton of pressures from inside. I mean, the play was right. It was inside rushing there. So I'd kind of want to see if they'll do that time to time on third downs.
I would think there'll be some sort of deal with that. We'll see.
Yeah.
Another unknown.
Number 11, the last one we'll get to today. Alex Singleton coming off what was really a spectacular, I don't even want to say season. It was 11 games. It took some injuries for him to get on the field, but once he was out there, I mean, he was a tackling machine. 120 tackles, 75 solo tackles in really, I mean, most of that in 11 games is pretty impressive.
He was number 2 in tackles in the NFL over the last 11 games. Obviously, it's not an official stat, and it's kept by some intern up there with a but it really was.
You get a general sense.
Absolutely,
yeah,
and kind of made us all forget Nate Gary really quickly, almost as quickly as the 49ers forgot him. But how about that? We should get into that. But I like the way he played, and it makes you wonder what they were looking at because it took him so long to get on the field. And they'll probably tell you, well, he wasn't ready yet, and he was coming from another league in another country, and it's a big adjustment. Just the language barrier, I think, kind of held him back for a while. He came in speaking French. No, kidding, but. I like the way he played. It's been so long since the Eagles have had that kind of linebacker. He's a thumper. He loves playing on the line of scrimmage. If you throw him the ball, he'll catch it and run it into the end zone. But yeah, he was one of the bigger surprises last year. Well, we kind of knew that. I mean, I didn't know he would be that good playing all the time, playing that many snaps. But he was so physical on special teams and so willing to be physical. And sometimes that just kind of carries over, and it did. I don't know long-term what his future is, but he's older than his coach. But I'm a big fan. I think you learn a lot about players when things are going bad around you and the team's losing and, the quarterback's getting benched. I mean, the coach is struggling. All hell was breaking loose. And he just went out there and played hard every snap last year. And I think that tells you a lot when things are going bad, who's still out there going 100% every play.
Yeah. And it's funny, the Eagles haven't really put a ton of resources, as we all know, into the linebacker position. But all of a sudden, Eric Wilson, Alex Singleton, TJ Edwards, and then we'll see about Davion Taylor and Sean Bradley. That's not bad. It's not great. It's not bad.
Out of that group, I mean, Davion Taylor is the only guy, I think, on the roster who was drafted in the first 4 rounds. Right?
Yeah.
Or first 5 rounds? Because Bradley was a 6, right?
Bradley was a 6, yeah.
So he might be the only guy drafted in the first 5 rounds on the roster. But if you can cobble together, and this is a Howie thing, and I don't think he's totally off base. I know everyone wants him to draft a linebacker, but if you can cobble together a linebacking core without using premium picks, it's worked before for him. So, I mean, I was a fan of Michael Kendricks, who was a 2, and they don't, he was really good in 17. So, that certainly goes against the cobbling together theory, but
they paid Bradham.
And they paid Bradham a lot of money. He wasn't a high pick though, was he originally?
No.
I don't think he was a high pick, but where's he now? He's not in the league, is he?
He is not in the league.
Is he going to play again?
Probably not.
It's crazy how many guys from that Super Bowl team are no longer in the league. I mean, there's like 40 of them. It's crazy. Story idea.
I think you've done that one.
Yeah, probably. I don't think recently though. Nate Gary's another one. We'll see what happens with him. But yeah, Singleton, big fan. See where he fits in.
So now let's look back at the list. Do you think I have anyone too high or too low?
No, I don't think so. I think the one guy I mentioned, I mean, Dillard Malati, you can make a case that they should be higher because left tackle is left tackle. And when you have a competition at that spot, it's going to be pretty important. But no, I think you're spot on here. I think I can guess most of the top 10.
I would hope so. Yeah. I mean, it's really the order is what I think.
Yeah.
People will want to see. And yeah, we'll see what people think about that next week when we do it. We wanted to bring up Deshaun Watson because it's a big topic of
conversation.
Else is. Yeah. It kind of got stirred up again last week. Adam Schefter was on The Fanatic and kind of brought up Deshaun Watson on his own. Just kept saying the Eagles are, the best position team to make a run at him, which isn't new. I mean, necessarily. I think the news part of that was that here's Adam Schefter bringing it up on his own. But we know that the Eagles are probably going to have 3 first-round picks. We know they're going to have a ton of cap space. We know how they feel about the quarterback position. So it all lines up. And whenever we talk about Watson, I think obviously it has to start with everything personal, everything in those civil suits against him. And until that plays out, or until any team would feel comfortable knowing how it's going to play out, I don't think he's going to be on the move. But everything else lines up the way we knew it did.
Right. Yeah. It's the off the field stuff. If that gets resolved, and I mean, I can't comment. I just know what I've read. It's not good. So nothing is going to happen. I don't think anything's imminent. I think we can agree on that. There's nothing imminent until this stuff's all resolved. He's not going anywhere. No team, even the Raiders wouldn't. Well, the Raiders might. He's not going anywhere right now. So, you'd like for Jalen Hurts to be able to go out and play some football without hearing this stuff all the time, but that's the reality, and it does make sense. And that's what Schefter was saying, that it's a logical destination. He wasn't saying they made an offer. He wasn't saying they're trying to acquire him. He just said it makes sense, and it does. Let's see what Jalen Hurts can do, and then we'll figure out who's going to be the quarterback in the future.
Yeah, football wise, they'd be crazy not to
absolutely
look at. I mean, there are only, how many elite quarterbacks are there in the league? 5, 6?
There's 5, and he's probably the youngest of the group.
Yeah.
I mean, most of them are the elite guys are in their 50s or 40s.
Josh Allen, if you consider him there right
he's
now.
In that group. Yeah.
After 1 year though, so you never know.
Right.
There was another quarterback who I would have put in that list at one point.
I have no idea who that could be. I don't know. Was he ever in that? Yeah, he was close.
Yeah. Absolutely. Almost won the MVP.
Yeah, I mean, that was 10 games, but he was never at that level consistently after that.
Yeah, but that's the point, is that it was 1 year, and Josh Allen's had one great year.
Yeah, well, that's why I'm not ready to put Josh Allen up there with Brady and
sure.
Yeah.
Who is it? It's Brady, Russ,
Mahomes.
Rodgers, Mahomes. Brady, Russ, Rodgers, Mahomes.
And Watson. Yeah. I mean, to me, that's the top 5. And then Josh Allen would probably be next.
Then Lamar.
And then Hurts.
In any case, Watson's very good as a football player, and any team will be crazy not to at least look into it if you need a quarterback. And the Eagles might need a quarterback. We don't know.
And that's what we're about to find out over the next few months.
Can't wait. I can't wait, Rube.
I know. We've talked about it so much. And to me, and I mean, we have plenty of time to talk about this, but to me, this season is about, it's about Jalen Hurts. It's what this year's about. I can't wait to see him play. I mean, I'm on the record, and I've written it and I've said it. I think he's going to be pretty good. I think I like what I saw. I think people are really focusing on way too many negatives. I'm not saying he's going to be great, but I think he has a chance to be a good NFL quarterback.
I have no idea. I really don't. I'd like to say that, but I don't know. I just really don't know. I'm skeptical about a lot of it. So not that he has to prove me wrong. I mean, who the hell am I? But I want to see it.
Yeah.
And I think there's some talent there. So I'm really curious to see how he works in this offense. I'm curious to see how Nick Sirianni goes about building an offense for him, which is something he didn't have last year. And Sirianni, by the way, I wanted to bring up, I forgot to mention this, but there was some Michael Robinson, I think, said he knows that some players in the locker room aren't fully I'm paraphrasing here, aren't fully buying in. Did that do anything for you? I mean, that.
Well, I thought the interesting thing was how quickly Lane Johnson and Fletcher Cox went on social media and, said, all right, who are they? Let's have some names if you're going to throw this out there, and just shot it down. I thought that was important that a couple of the real leaders of the team did that immediately. Look,
that's probably more important than the initial part of it.
I thought so. There's 90 guys on the roster. Is there a team in the NFL where all 90 guys agree on anything?
And we heard similar stuff about Doug in 2016, and I think that comes with the territory of not being a hot name, not being a top candidate around the league. I think
we heard that about Andy. the only guy you didn't hear about was Chip, who was the worst of the bunch. Yeah. Just because he had, he had done what he did at Oregon. So you didn't
Little
hear that.
Devil's advocate, do you think with Sirianni, you have to read into it a little bit more because of the energetic, not rah-rah, but his persona? Do you think that could rub people the wrong way?
It could.
I don't think that's the case. I'm just throwing it out there.
But again, I just think, I think with him, it's authentic. It's who he is. I think he doesn't come across disingenuous. I don't think. I think he comes across that's his personality. And, I think we'll see. I think we'll see at camp. Because that's how he is with us. I think that all the players we've asked about that have talked about just how deep his football knowledge is and how that's really who he is, and that they've all been impressed with that. I think if you have that and you come across authentic and you're honest with your players, they're going to go play hard. And the other thing is, like, players want contracts. They want to make the opening day roster and start making, minimum wage is 50 or 60 grand a week. So they're going to do all they can to go out there and have their best training camp possible to make the team. So if there's some guys who aren't sold on Nick Sirianni, how's that supposed to manifest itself? They're going to not practice hard. They're not going to be here. So these guys they all want jobs. They all want to prove themselves. Yeah, I just don't worry about it.
And if you get the big dogs to follow, everyone else will fall in line.
So true. Yeah. So we'll see. I don't put a lot of stock into it.
I'm picturing people right now who have been waiting for this podcast.
Now they're waiting for it to end.
Now they're like, how long were these always this long? Do they have to, they're starting another topic? Oh my God. No, we're done. That's it.
Now we're going to talk about the 100 greatest plays in Eagles history. Number 100.
If you enjoy the Eagle Eye podcast, please rate, subscribe, wherever you get your pods. If you're watching on YouTube, click the subscribe button there as well. Reuben, you got anything else before we wrap it up?
No,
please, no.
Just expect a lot of podcasts once camp starts.
Yeah, a lot of podcasts, and maybe one with people around. I don't know. I didn't say anything. All right, we'll talk to you guys soon.